Hi, welcome back to another episode of Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. In this week's video, we will be working on the 33 Ford Coupe, but since I haven't done anything on the 27 Model T, the plan is to attack some of the stuff on that. As I said probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, what I was asked to do next was to work on the rear tail pan. The back section, you can't see it right now. What I might do is actually turn it around while I'm working on it so I can show you what I'm doing. We've got a lot of pretty decent parts here. I went through it. He has quarter panel patches for every hole on it. The rear deck lid, so long as this stuff is good stuff and I don't have to work it up too much, it should be a straightforward thing to work on the back, but we'll get into that later. The other thing is the owner of the 33 Ford Coupe, he has this 33 hood, 33 hood. I was going to call it a bonnet. So for some people it's a bonnet depending on where you are, but it's a hood where I am. But what he wants to do is he wants 3 rows of louvers going on this. Now we've covered doing the louvers on the 35 Ford pickup, but we haven't done a car yet. So what I will do is I will flip this over. I'll probably put the time lapse on and we'll cover laying out the louvers, and then we'll actually take it. I think right now we're planning doing it on Tuesday, punching the louvers, so I should be able to capture it in this week's video. We'll get that done. There's a few little wiring things and stuff I want to get done on the coupe. I think that the fan should be coming in for the radiator, so maybe we'll get onto that. I think that's going to be the limit of what we can do in the next week, but we'll try and do all of them, maybe some more, but that's the plan for this week, so follow along. So kind of as I said this week, first up, we're going to do a little bit of work on the 27 T Coupe. Going to work on the rear tail pan or lower deck lid, whatever you want to call it. The rear corners are pretty rotted out too. So right now I have the T turned around so that we can work on it a little more easily, and I put the ATV outside. So while I'm working on it, that way I don't get grinding dust and everything all over it. So it gives me a little more space and a little more space to show you what I'm doing. So what I'm going to do here is I will set the time lapse up and I'll start taking a few things apart. I'm going to take the deck lid off first. It's just loosely bolted in. Then we'll start cutting out the rear deck lid panel. Now the owner does have there. You can see it there. There's a new rear deck lid panel as well as a supporting structure that goes across the back. Subframe support, or I'm not sure what you call it or not. That's going to have to be replaced. Anyways, we'll see what else we get into here, so follow along. So there's the end result of the time-lapse video, getting the lower deck lid cover off, as well as the supports. Now what we need to do is we need to save this piece here. More than likely I'm going to have to cut it and weld some pieces onto it. I need to keep that top support lip. Now the side reinforcing pieces here, maybe keep them or make new ones, I'm not sure. But this is the original deck lid sheet metal here that has to come off. But now this piece has to be completely cleaned up. I've got to take the rest of the rivets out of those flanges. And then the inner lip here is just a lot of rust. We'll clean that out. So I don't know if I'll do time lapse for everything. Too much is usually never a good thing. But I'll step you through all the stuff that I'm doing here. But right now it's out. We're at the first step of repairing the lower deck lid. So we're going to get that piece cleaned up, like I said. And then the new piece right there would normally fit across here. So we'll clean it up, we'll trial fit that piece, and then see where we are. So I did a little cleanup work off camera this time. Essentially the supporting structure that was behind the other deck lid, that's the replacement one. There is a supporting structure right here, like that. So that frames up the lower deck lid. It's got a bunch of holes. Got a bunch of holes in the side for reinforcements. And then also in the center, there's this structure here, which looks as though mounted the spare tire. Now I'm gonna have to clean this up and do some reconstructive surgery on this. It looks like it's 1/8 wall, so it's gonna be some heavy stuff. More than likely, my first guess, I'm gonna wind up probably cutting it about there, maybe a little higher, and then replacing the bottom part. The top section here, although it's kind of crusty on the outside, looks structurally fine. We'll knock the rivets out. And then the bottom sub rail cross member, it basically had to beat it in because the sides here, they wouldn't flex out because everything was welded together. But basically came in from this side and then pushed it down. I think that if we had an original Model T that still had the existing sub rails into it, we would probably be able to bend the corners out so it would slide in a little easier. But that's just sitting in there right now. But anyway, making some progress. Next up, what I'll be doing, like I said, I'm going to fix this section here, and then we're going to start trial fitting that lower deck lid pan. I've already discovered that the edges folded over are quite wide, will have to be trimmed, but that's not uncommon when you buy replacement panels versus making them. They leave a lot of extra material onto it to trim off. So anyway, that's next. So I think I was saying earlier, the next step is to repair the support. It's pretty much rotted out from here down. There was a reinforcing bracket here. There were 3 bolt holes that went through the rear tail pan that would have attached a spare tire carrier. One here, and then there was another bracket up with a bolt into it. Since we're not going to be doing that, I don't feel it's necessary to replace this piece in the back. But I want to kind of reproduce or repair this support piece. Now I measured it, it's made out of 125 thick material, so it's not that easy to go on the brake there and bend some sheet metal. So what we're going to do is I was able to bend one piece. So what we'll do is I'll take this, and you could probably use channel if you wanted to, a 1-inch channel. But I just bent this piece up. We're going to use a left and a right. I'm going to weld, I don't know if you can see it or not, I'll put them kind of together a little bit. I'm going to weld that across the top, and then weld this on the bottom like that. And then what I'll do is I'll clamp that to the table, measure it to where I want to cut it off, and ultimately
graft this onto this original piece and then dress it up to make it look as close as we can to the original. I didn't put the time lapse on for cutting these pieces out. That's relatively straightforward. I think it was more important to explain the process that one of the processes or one of the ways that you could, repair this piece. So anyways, we'll set the time lapse up and I will weld all this stuff together. I'll clamp that to the table, and hopefully by the end of the time lapse, you'll see me with a repaired rear support piece here. there's the repaired support. Hopefully from the time lapse you can see what I did to cut it out and measure it and weld it back in and then basically dress it up to look half lays like new. Again, I'm not going to drill these 2 holes here or put the support in because we have no intention of putting the spare tire back onto it. The intent right now is to have that. It's still a little bit on the worm side from grinding, and that will ultimately go there. A little bit of welding on the back in order to get the contours right and so it would fit here. The one thing I have realized though, before I go any further with the tail pan, I think from an accessibility point of view, I should actually stop before I put the tail pan on or lower deck lid or whatever and make the repair to these rear corners, because I'm going to have more, without that in place, I'm going to have more access to put these corners on. Now these are reproduction corners. I think they're, well, they might be 20 gauge, but I'm guessing 21. They're pretty thin, but nevertheless, they came with it. We're going to try and use it. So as soon as my batteries charge up from the DeWalt mini grinder, I'm going to come back out here and we're going to cut some of these off and try and put some of these patch panels in place before we put the lower deck lid panel there in place. So we got the structure all sorted out, everything ripped out, everything cleaned up, kind of ready to start fitting the tail pan in, but we're just going to switch gears for the time being and start working on the rear corners, just again for accessibility reasons. So there's one corner. It's the passenger side corner. It's all cut out, welded, and dressed in. Turned out okay. I'm gonna go over it again, look and see if there's any pinholes or anything. But so far it looks good. Basically welded across the top of there. From behind, there's a flange that goes in between another piece of metal, but there was an original piece inside that I was able to, along this edge, I could weld from the inside to hold it in place. So besides taking the whole strip off and doing more damage, that seemed the best option right now. The inside has already been painted, some of the subframe and stuff. I'm willing to replace some of that original subframe, but I think the owner is going to do some more work on that himself. So right now I'm going to stick to kind of the work that I was asked to do on this, and then we'll talk about what else I can do later. But for now, I got one corner done. I'm going to repeat the same process on the other side. The other side, the exception being, I'm going to have to make a small patch, because I think this corner is only going to go as far as here, but I'll have to make a small patch of metal to weld into it that will fit up above here. Otherwise, it's basically the same thing, you know, scribe it out, cut it out, trim the patch to fit, weld it in place, and so on and so forth. So I won't do the time lapse for the second one. You saw how I do the first one. It's just the reverse on the other side of the car. So a little bit slight change of plans. What we're going to do next, I was going to do the other rear corner on a 27T, but I got a call from my friend who owns the Louver press, and tomorrow he wants me to come punch the louvers on the hood for the 33 Coupe. So what I'm going to do right now, because I don't want to wait till the last minute, is I am going to lay out the louvers on the 33 hood. He wants 3 rows of 3-inch louvers, one long one here, a medium one, and then a short one over here. We're going to stay in the flat section of the hood. In the past, I've covered punching the louvers, but I haven't put the time lapse up showing you how I lay them out. It's pretty straightforward, but nevertheless, what I'll do in the theme of doing more time lapse and covering doing the stuff, I will set up the camera and I'll show you me laying out the louvers. Well, hopefully you could see from the time lapse laying out the louvers. In this particular case, I was spacing the rows of louvers 1.25 inches apart, getting a little closer. Some of the other times I've done them, I've done 2 inches apart, but we want to kind of push the louvers more to the center of the hood and get more of them in there. Want to have 3 rows of them. There's plenty of room for the die, for it to sit on a die. I think it only overhangs by about 3/4 inch, so we could potentially have gone closer. But I think, well, one advantage too is that the actual ruler I'm using itself is 1.25 inches wide, so can do a sanity check on that. So not only are they spaced 1.25 inches apart, side to side, but each louver from the die is spaced 1.25 inches all the way along. What I wanted to do was kind of get a more or less like a symmetrical kind of line like that, so that we've got the 3 louvers kind of ending kind of on the same line on the top of the hood. We want to stay as much as we can in the flat of the hood. You can push your louvers into the curved part of the hood. It's just a little more difficult to do. You can risk having to dolly out some metal or something. You kind of have to fold the hood down or push it down while you're punching it so that you don't make extra marks into it. But we're going to keep this simple. Try and keep them all in the flat of the hood. And with any luck now, tomorrow I won't make a mistake. You can see where I've got the starts, because when the louver, the flat side of the louver is here, and then the rounded portion goes forward. So on the back of the flat section of the louver die or press itself, it's got a line where we're going to line it up with this center line here. So I got my center lines marked. I've got my starts, my stops marked. Couple arrows in case my masking tape came off. If you saw on there, the masking tape wasn't sticking very well, so I used some marker on the hood itself. Now before, what I was doing was we brought the metal down to shiny, and then I was using somewhere here the Dicam, spraying that on and scratching it. But I found with this old paint and the rust, by just using an X-Acto knife, I could scratch it and I could easily see where my lines are. So that's what we're going to go with this. Even with the Dicam, you're going to scratch the metal anyways. So I just didn't spray the Dicam on because we could scratch the paint on the underside. I think ultimately, I don't think this is going to be painted. I think he's going to run this kind of just as, a patina rod, not a rat rod, but a patina rod. And then basically we're going to punch the louvers, put the hood on it, and that is it. So tomorrow I should be all set to go to take this on the louver press. We will set up the time-lapse camera with me punching them as well and show you the process. Okay, here is a 1934 Ford 5-window coupe. Some people who watch another YouTube channel here in Nova Scotia might recognize it. It came from the Annapolis Valley. Someone else bought it. My friend bought it off of him. We're not going to name any names, but anyways, it is a 34 Ford 5-window coupe. It's been sitting around here in Nova Scotia in a garage for 25, 30 years. Changed hands a couple times. The gentleman passed away, his brother passed away or something to that magnitude, and one of the nephews or whatever finally sold it to someone else and then to my friend, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it is here at my friend's place that I do a lot of work for. It is pretty rough. Not at all like the 33 that's in the shop right now. So this potentially is the next project. I'm going to do a walk around and not get my friend in the picture because he's camera shy. But it is pretty rough, but salvageable. But it is still an original 34 5-window coupe. I'm going to walk around here. She's pretty crusty and dented up, but it's never been restored. We do have, or he has, a lot of extra parts, tailpan, inside or whatever. But it's going to be a serious lot of work, not unlike the New York coupe and the Moncton coupe that we did a couple years ago. So it's going to be in that magnitude. It'll be probably in the shop if it comes, or we think it is. It's going to be in the shop for quite a while because, as you can see, there's lots of work to do on this thing, but it is still a 34 5-window coupe. So anyways, tell me what you think. Tell me if I'm crazy, and follow along for the rest of the channel. Well, I get a little bit too far ahead of myself here again. As I mentioned before, I did show you how I did the passenger side rear corner. I duplicated the same thing on the driver's side rear corner, with the small exception that we had to make a small little patch up here. So that's in. Started playing around with the rear tailpan, trying to figure out how to get it in, because I had no way of moving the rear corners out because everything's welded in place. So that kind of left me, how can I slide the rear tailpan up underneath this lip on either side, or slide it down. So ultimately what I decided to do, I just started playing around and was actually able to, I may have to pull that back out because we need to have a little bit more of an arc there. So we'll see if I can pull that out easily. I'm not sure. Well, anyways, we've got it in once. If I pull it back out, I'll show you what I'm going to do, but I can see that I don't have, we need to get some more curve over on that side there. So anyways, I'm trial fitting the tailpan in. Things are going relatively well. If I have to pull it out, I'll put the time lapse back in and I'll show you how I did it. And I'm thinking that's what I'm going to have to do. Now, on another note, yesterday, as I showed the time lapse, we punched the louvers on the top of the 33 Ford Coupe hood. Things went well. They stretched a little bit of kind of cracking in the corners, but nothing too serious. But also in a previous episode, I had a 32 Ford Roadster deck lid that I had louvered up with 4-inch louvers, or started to louver up. I only got 2 of them done because I had a wicked amount of tearing in these corners. So I stopped. My assumption was that the metal was work hardened too much. It was too brittle. One thing I realized with the louver die is that you can limit the amount that the louver pushes in. So I think what we thought was happening was the louvers was pushing too much metal up this way. So we rooted around with the tooling that came with it. We found some little metal aluminum spacers you could put at the bottom of the female part of the louver die. So we put that in and started punching the louvers, and lo and behold, we were able to finish off all of the louvers on the back of the 33 Ford deck lid. So lesson learned on that one. We kind of have to teach ourselves and see how we go. But we've got the 32 Ford Roadster deck lid for the International Roadster done. So that was bonus. The other thing we needed for the International Roadster, which we're kind of currently not working on right now, we're just kind of getting a few parts up for it. We needed a set of 37 to 41 wishbones, so I picked up a really good set of 37 to 41 Ford wishbones, nice and straight, not overly pitted. The hangers, the spring hangers have been cut off, so what we'll have to do, we'll have to trim the rest of this off, make it nice and smooth. But the kingpin bosses and the chamfers all look good on this. And then what we'll do is we'll cut this off at some point, put the bungs in the end, more than likely for some early style tie rod ends. So successful day yesterday. Just going to carry on a little bit more with the 27 T Coupe and see how far we can get before I reach the video cutoff time.
Okay, that's it for another week of Coldstream Rod Shop. This week we worked on the louvering the hood and a deck lid. Made a trip down to my friend's place and went over looking at a new project. Did quite a bit of work on the 27T. I did a lot of time lapse this week. I don't know if I did too much or not enough. Give me your feedback. Trying to cover now a little bit more of what I'm doing, showing what I'm doing through the time lapse. So kind of navigating through how much is enough and too much and all that stuff, and trying to get a good angle so you guys can see what we're doing. So any feedback you have on that, good or bad, let us know. The other thing we did with the Camera Ladies Roadster is last Saturday, I went on I think it's a 4.5 hour round trip to a car show in a town here in Nova Scotia called Liverpool. And for you folks in the UK, there's a town in Nova Scotia called Liverpool, and it's on the Mersey River, much like it is in the UK, much smaller town, but it's a really nice town. They put on a really good car show. I haven't been there for years. A lot of cars I hadn't seen before. I think there was close to 400 cars there, very high quality stuff, stuff I don't normally see around here. And I left around 2 o'clock because I wanted to go to another car show, which was about 45 minutes north of here, on a Saturday night at an exhibition. So 2 p.m. I left, and then I got a message from my friend that, oh, by the way, you won top 10 for the Camera Ladies Roadster. So kind of thought that was really cool and very very flattered by that somebody or some of the judges would think that the car was top 10. We love the car. We like the car. We think it's great, but it's always nice when somebody says, oh, by the way, it's really nice. So anyway, that's it for this week at Coldstream Rod Shop. Please like, share, tag, and subscribe. Come on back next week. We'll still be working on the Model T and the 33 Ford. Everybody take care. Have a great week.